Go ahead, Lisa.
Good evening and welcome to the Moline Public Library, at least the Moline Public Library virtually through the airways with Midwest Writing Center, both via Zoom and on YouTube and Facebook live stream this evening. We are glad that you are with us for this interesting program. The Midwest Writing Center is near and dear to my heart. It is the brainchild of David Collins, a local writer who I had the privilege of knowing early in my library career. And I've had many more experiences with the Writing Center, with the Young Emerging Writers Program and other things. But tonight we are delighted to bring you several readers who are the writers in the collaborative work, These Interesting Times. And These Interesting Times captures surviving 2020 in the Quad Cities during COVID-19. So it's local history, hyper-local history in the making from the perspective of writers, prose and poetry. It's an encapsulation of this time period. And I think that that's really important that we as libraries have that to share now and to share in the future. So for a few housekeeping notes, please, if you are not part of this program, please turn off your camera. Please mute your mic until we get to the end unless you have a question. You may wish to go ahead and turn your view so that you've got a speaker view and to pin that as well. Please also note that if you are registered for this program, we will send you a program survey at the end. We'd like to know your feedback on how this went, as well as other things you may be interested in. For now, I'm going to turn it over to our host, Sarah from the Midwest Writing Center. She's going to tell you the lineup of all the writers and the presenters. And I hope that you will learn something tonight. Sarah?
Thank you so much, Lisa. I'm so happy. I'm so happy you spoke. I feel like, well, hi, I'm Sarah with Midwest Writing Center. I'm so happy you spoke. I really feel like I don't get as, you know, there's a pandemic and I'm in a weird way new to town. I grew up here, but still kind of new to town in a weird way. I don't get the chance to see much of the community, particularly libraries, which I'm sure everyone is surprised to know are near and dear to my heart. Yeah, and I'm super glad that we have you on Team MWC. Of course, librarians are the backbone of most towns, and having any on our team is good. But you're a good one in particular. So for folks who may be tuning in out of curiosity, we are today celebrating reading from the publication These Interesting Times from MWC Press, that's Midwest Writing Center Press. It is an anthology that collects varied stories from around the Quad City area about all of the really different things that have happened. And it's been, it was in 2020. We're some bit removed from that now, but that year alone had a lot of hurdles, obstacles, surprises, etc. So we're gonna hear a few of those stories today. I'm going to be very excited to read some bios to you as I introduce the people. I'm going to tell you the lineup quick now, with a short warning that you're going to have to hear from me just a wee bit in the beginning. Thank you, Lisa, for inviting me, by the way. Following me will be Amy Penne, Frank Mullen, Beth Roberts, Joe Chambers, and Xixuan Collins. I guess I'll get started. Throughout the program, as I'm introducing people, I might throw some links into our comment section of our live streams. Don't be alarmed, folks at home. That's normal and happy things because we want to get you involved. We want to see what kind of programming we can offer, and we want to get this book in your hands. Yeah, I guess now it's my turn. The one thing that I didn't bookmark. Anyone know if I'm in the beginning or like the end? All right, I'm here. Okay. My piece is an epistolary, a letter written to Our Lady of Healing. Since that dim afternoon smudged into evening in your dorm, we've been of one mind on one thing in particular. We can do better. You went into nursing and I into social work, both of us always falling victim to the idea that a good argument and forceful compassion would change minds, could save lives. We're wrong. We know we're wrong. We keep wearing our hearts on our face coverings and squatting down to lift. Holy Mother of Healing, you could have stayed on your unit. You could have stayed out of harm's way at least a little bit, but with less than a week's notice, you volunteered to pack up a couple sets of scrubs, a tablet, and 2 books and move to Navajo Nation, where you now work 4 to 5 12s a week and spend your downtime telling Facebook to behave. I keep thinking about you since quarantine. Early in our friendship, I fell asleep in your dorm room and woke alone. You left to learn about anatomy or something. You were sad when you confided to me that you didn't know how to live if not in service. I left you sticky notes in your dresser and in the pages of your notebooks in hopes of reminding you of the you beneath the service, the Mary that came before the mother. A month into quarantine, I've been telling myself 2 things. 1, staying home is a public service, an act of respect to people like you and John Finney, the cute grocer who taught me how to pack up sound equipment after one of the 4th of July shows. And 2, that stupid misquote I always try to coach myself with. I will prepare so that when the time comes, I will be ready. To stave off guilt, I tell myself to get to work. So I work, I write. My eyes swim through blue light screens as I beg these workshops to find folks who need them, and art saves, right? I read Holy Mary. I honestly have never read more in my life, learning every single thing I could process. I go to every meeting a nonprofit or political action group invites me to. I learn to be a better activist. I try. It isn't much, but let's be honest, I'm doing a lot more now than I've ever done making coffee for $10 an hour. But what work is for you and what work is for me, the difference is life and death. The difference is my 20 pounds gained and your 20 pounds lost. The pain in your raw and bruised souls, the 3 masks my neighbor made and gave to me, and the disposable one you have to keep reusing. My spouse is planting seed starters and you're eating cold hospital food. You watch people die. I could tune out. We used to compare ourselves to fictional or historical characters, created a television version of our lives. You were a hippie Virgin Mary. Our friends were Freud and Faulkner. Imagine Faulkner, Twain, and the Virgin Mary walk into a bar. It's a wine bar. Mary and Faulkner have opinions and refined tastes. Twain tries everything, likes nothing. It would make an excellent sitcom, one with a laugh track. But when Hollywood catches up to us and they come out with COVID era episodes, I don't think it will be funny. The laugh track hollow, it will make dizzy swirls around the screen in a Twilight Zone hallway, and we won't laugh because everyone will be dying or already dead. Maybe they'll skip over 2020, pretend it never happened, because they don't make TV shows about this, not comedies anyway, and me and you, we believe in happy endings. But here's what I'm thinking. Maybe in a few years after COVID redefines us, maybe they'll make shows about people like us over communicating and trying too hard to help Mary and Twain get into hijinks. It could be cute. Art imitates life, as they say. And if there's someone to imitate, why not woo-woo Virgin Mary? What's so wrong with stubbornly believing that compassion will cure us of our worst ills? Jesus was a carpenter. Maybe his mother's a nurse. Following your lead, Twain. I'm super flattered to be reading tonight with this beautiful lineup. I want to add that piece was written in April 2020, so it's already outdated, as these things change so quickly. Our next reader is someone I first interacted with on Twitter. I don't know if she knows that I run Twitter. Hey, but I was so tickled and excited to get to see her work after feeling friendly with the interactions that we had on the internet. So Amy Penne, PhD, is a professor of English at Parkland College in Champaign, Illinois. Her essays and poems appear in Tupelo Quarterly, I-70 Review, Brainchild, Minerva Rising, Oh Baby, and elsewhere. She lives with her husband and sons in a very cold house on the prairie. Dr. Penne can be found at thepensivepenne.com. Dr. Penn, take it away.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Sarah. Your piece was beautiful. I'm so glad you read it. I'm so glad I got to hear it. I love to hear things. I love to read out loud, and I love to be read too. So this is an absolute honor to get to hear the work of the other people in the anthology. And thank you, Midwest Writing Center. The anthology is beautiful. It's beautifully produced, and everybody should get a copy. Absolutely. My piece is called Exit 212, a high bun essay of comfort food. And I'm a little further south in the Quad Cities. I'm in central Illinois at Exit 212 off of 57. And a high bun essay, for those who may not know, a high bun is a Japanese form. So there are short prose pieces broken up by short haiku poems. So that is this. This is sort of a mixed form. The times seem to call for a mixed form of prose. Introit. My New Year's resolutions from 2020 included eating less meat because I've had to pull over at rest areas during my 30-mile commute to work more than once to weep for the piglets, their pink snouts crying through the steel slaughter wagon as the semis passed me on their way from southern farms to the processing plants north of my very drafty arts and crafts home on the prairie. I was determined to slowly shift from pork ribs to portobello mushrooms with sherry sauce. By mid-March, the single IGA grocery store in my town was devoid of toilet paper, yeast, butter, most of the meat, soap, and cheese sticks. It was time to get creative, even if it meant the whole shift to vegan would happen in fits and starts. Highways became quiet, ribbons filled with courageous drivers, determined and still on time. Frank's Red Hot Buffalo Wing Sauce. Grocery shopping made way for a virus that took our breath away. Microscopic organisms shut down Michigan Avenue and local cupcake shops, and even the cast iron pub on Sale Street. When trips to the grocery store suddenly required risk management and liability insurance, every excursion mattered, and we needed reliable condiments. Frank's Red Hot Buffalo Wing Sauce resurrected the remaining life in leftovers, from the wilted celery to those yellow tofu crumbles dancing in their own slime in the back of the fridge. Frank's hides the aftertaste of the vegan beef and chicken I'd ordered pre-pandemic from a meal delivery service. Soon I had to find something to disguise the meat's fraudulent qualities. Frank's became my pungent pandemic go-to with its delicate dance of vinegar and cayenne. I've always appreciated buffalo sauce in the past, but Frank's was one of the few condiments that never ran out at our local IGA, and overnight it became a staple. Despair goes viral. Anxious gatherers cling to condiments for asylum. Gin. I'm normally a Tito's vodka girl, but this pandemic screamed for gin and tonic. I found Bartram's, a delightful balance of dry London gin and more herbal botanicals. Thank God Bartram's sparkles in Sprite Zero, the closest thing to diet tonic I could find when our IGA was out and I had to turn to local Casey's for mixers. I tried Bartram's because Friar Tuck was out of Hendrix. Happy accident. But it's 30 miles to Friar Tuck's, which means you got to buy 2 bottles at a time. Hoarding bottles in pairs, 2 by 2, preserving the ark, waiting for doves to signal rainbows. Bay leaves. I potted bay leaves last spring when the pandemic naturally meant we should all cultivate victory gardens. Our Penzin Street house sits on a corner lot rich in Illinois soil. The first spring that we moved into this centenarian house, I planted packets of pumpkins, cucumbers, lettuce, broccoli, green beans, radishes, and tomatoes. I grew up a city girl, Atlanta, Denver, Charlotte, a brief stint near Fort Worth. Transplanted city girls don't know that growing packets of pumpkins next to cucumbers on top of lettuce and crawling with green beans means you'll get at least 200 times the pumpkins needed for 2 sons to carve up pumpkins in October. Who knew green beans require something to climb on? Live and learn. Last spring, I nailed the perfect balance of radishes, greens, tomatoes, and herbs. Bay leaves endure summer heat and deep winter chill. Cherish hope in rugged stalks. Spam casserole. I know, I said I resolved to be more vegan, but I'm confident that no actual pigs are harmed in the production of spam. Besides, by early fall, all we wanted was comfort food, and I missed my mama's spam casserole, the proverbial taste of my Southern childhood. Spam, macaroni noodles, canned tomatoes, cream of whatever you got soup, any version of yellow cheese that hasn't gone green in the fridge. Mama never wrote down her recipes. She cooked from her gut, and that's how I learned. Trial and error. Recipes are for perfectionists. I admire them. But I've never met a recipe I followed, except for my grandma's red velvet cake, which requires skill and precision. Spam casserole requires only a commitment to comfort and toasting the spam first. My mama chopped it right straight out of the can, but I improved it, crisping it to salty perfection first. I wish I could share it with her now. She's been dead well over 20 years, but times like these make us miss our moms collectively. Watching mothers die this year stretched a mom-shaped wound in the fabric of our shared multiverse. My friend's mother died in a nursing home on Facebook Live. She hasn't had time or space to grieve this new breed of loss, intimate and distant at the same time. I should make her a spam casserole. Families grieve, distanced, ransacked apart, microbe by microbe, forgetting whose mom is whose. Gardein burgers. We've established my vegan resolution has met with substantial obstacles, including, but not limited to, spam. I am steadfast, however, in my quest to find really good fake meat. My best friend went vegan when her wife and children decided to go full on vegan. Well, the oldest is pure vegan. The other 3 decided there was no clear path to cheeseless food. And she got me hooked on Gardein. I've got the meatball version of these bad boys drowning right now in a stroganoff sauce in the oven. Over the Amish dumplings I nabbed last summer from one of the random Amish shoppies in Arthur, the carnivores won't know what hit them. I can't, however, cook a fake meatloaf that tastes like my mama's real thing. By Christmas, sheltering in place deepened the craving for comfort food. And while the meatloaf itself is tasty, the comfort comes the next day. Cold meatloaf sandwiches as late breakfast, sliced loaf with a chilled glaze of beef fat atop undercooked bacon chunks, settled between 2 slices of slightly stale white bread, smothered in Hellmann's, slathered on both sides of the bread, finished with fresh 42 degrees, check that thermometer, Heinz ketchup from the upside down bottle in the refrigerator door. That's a sandwich. If Mama had lived past her second marriage to Smirnoffs, maybe she'd have loved Frank's. But she died before buffalo sauce was as common as ketchup. She died before I finished developing. She died before she could laugh with me at the thicket of pumpkins and cucumbers scrambling all over my yard that first harvest we moved here. Whispering lunar incantations, midnights shake the memories as a madman shakes dead geraniums, after T.S. Eliot. Pre-packaged chopped salads featuring kale. Our IGA's random assortment of kale salad kits are a lifesaver. Sure, they're overpriced. One could chop up kale, radish slivers, and dried up carrots oneself, of course, but one doesn't. Those corrupt single-use plastic bags call to me from the bright lights of the grab-and-go produce. If I should eat more kale anyway, the less time I have to spend thinking about the bitter leaves from my yard texture, the better. I made sure to feed my husband and sons the healthiest foods I could find in the midst of food shortages and masked strangers. Plus, the store was always out of spinach. Green was hard to find, shelves were barren and brown, even yellow was bright as seen on TV. Mary's Gone crackers. These are not available at exit 212. They are shipped from the villainous Amazon empire or from my online market of choice, Thrive Market, the brainchild of 4 millennials on a mission headquartered in California. Mary's brown rice and quinoa delights are manufactured in Reno, Nevada, certified organic by the International Certification Services in Medina, North Dakota. Mary's black pepper crackers are a natural mate for guacamole, salsa, cream cheese, whatever you can scavenge. They keep me connected to California and Nevada and North Dakota by my postman. They remind me that there's still a world out there at other exits off other highways we haven't been able to travel for over 2 years. They comfort with sea salt and soybeans, the soybeans that will be planted here in all directions this spring, regardless of how many more moms or dads pass away, or how many students drop out of school, or how many more local kids die from painkillers. Life will thrive in the next harvest. Spring's sowing is right around the corner, no matter how cracked we are. When the violet crocus bursts, will brokenness recede or creep like bindweed pursuing victory gardens?
Thank you so much. That was so beautiful. I hope that for folks who don't have it in front of them, they that you take the opportunity to look at the book, because the visual of this piece is pretty powerful. Given the format, it's really cool. Thank you so much, Amy. That was such a pleasure. Next, I get to introduce you to Frank Mullen III, whose columns have been published in Midwestern newspapers. His witticisms have appeared in the Washington Post, the Chicago Tribune, and his prize-winning poetry has been read on NPR, and his exaggerated sense of self-importance has alienated him from his neighbors in Aledo, Illinois. Frank, read to us, please.
Thanks very much. And thank you, Sarah and Amy, for reading. It's fascinating. I've just started reading through the anthology, and it's wonderful to hear the authentic voices of the people that I'm Zooming with. This is Cancel Culture, a Pan Diary. January is usually a month of misery, particularly here in Illinois. Our motto, frigidum et snowblower. But the first month of 2020 brings no depression, no post-Christmas letdown. Wherever you live, this is going to be a great year. If you're a hardcore Democrat who sips white wine while writing checks to National Public Radio, you're thrilled. We're going to impeach the worst president in American history. If you're a rabid Republican who chugs through six-packs while gorging on Fox News, you're acting angry while secretly cheering. The Democrats are preparing to commit suicide by trying and failing to impeach the greatest president in American history. And if you pay no attention to politics, you're the happiest person on the planet. Bartender, around for the house and make them all doubles. This is going to be a great year. Sure, we hear now and then about some virus thingy in China, but what's the big deal? Every day, the media provides stories about the devaluation of the dollar against the Spanish peseta, or an uprising of uppity Middle Eastern women who want driver's licenses. Such foreign froth blows in one ear and out the other without disturbing the 3-pound lump of complacency that is the American brain. While we're glued to our flat screen coverage of the impeachment and Senate trials, That thingy in China doesn't sit still. It grows and spreads until it's the lead story on the nightly news. We're learning words like coronavirus and pandemic. They sound foreign and distant, like melting ice caps. The sort of thing that might, maybe, possibly affect us just a tiny bit someday in some other century. In February, those thingies are marching toward our borders, and no wall will stop them. Small Midwestern towns specialize in gossip. Good, clean American gossip, the kind that almost qualifies as a public service. Your local paper will tell you what is happening, corn roast, where, the Legion Hall, and when, Thursday afternoon at 5, unless Larry forgets to open the building again, and we have to send someone down to the cozy corner to get the key. But the paper will rarely tell you the why behind the news. We're roasting corn because Larry's abilities as a barbecue chef are no better than his talent at remembering to unlock buildings. In late March, the governor of Illinois announces plans to close everything down and quarantine us all. A few days before the shutdown date, my town's overstressed gossip chain blows a gasket and can't keep up with the details. It'll just last a few days. We'll be in isolation for a week. Actually, it's going to be more like 2 weeks. As a pessimist, I consider the 2-week lockdown most likely. Fortunately, I'm plugged into the information hub, the rumor locus of small town gossip, the library. I used to work in our local library and learned that there is very little difference between the jobs of librarian and rumor mill operator. 15 volumes of the Encyclopedia Britannica won't provide you with as much useful information as a woman checking out the latest Nora Roberts novel. The day before shutdown, I stopped by the library and asked Judy, what's what? We used to work together, and she's a straight shooter with the gossip gun. She tells me that a state employee just left with a carton of detective novels, telling her that the statewide quarantine will last even longer than the 2-week projection. I sweep through the shelves and fill my own carton of books. I spent a good portion of my life smoking and drinking like the sailor I was. As a result, I have to deal with more medical problems than a St. Louis emergency room on Saturday night. I'm a prime candidate for catching the coronavirus and responding poorly to it. After consulting with Jo, my wife and retired health professional, we decide to take the quarantine seriously. I'll stay home, except for necessary appointments, and Jo will go out only for vital errands. My April days and nights at home give me time to ponder something all recovering alcoholics know about: acceptance. Life is full of things you hate, unfair things you don't deserve. They may be character-building lessons from God, or just random roadblocks on the highway. Either way, to fight unfairness is to wage war against reality, without armor, weapon, or hope. Whatever it is, you don't have to like it. You just have to accept it. I keep this in mind as it becomes obvious that we're all going to spend a few weeks, maybe even a couple of months, barricaded in our fortresses. Surprisingly, I go a step further and look on the bright side. I'm unaccustomed to the sight. Usually, I let problems sit undisturbed, dark side up, so they can fester and decay. But I breathe in the fairy dust of optimism that has blown in from parts unknown. I see the impending isolation less as punishment than as opportunity. Oh, the novels you'll write, Frank, the songs you'll compose, the stories, the memoirs, the poems, the prose. Others will sulk and complain, but not you. So shift into gear, Frank. You've so much to do. I decide to start with a letter to my local newspaper, lauding the communities in my area for their clear, principled response to the emergency. My town shut down its restaurants even before the governor's closure orders. Jo tells me everyone in town is wearing masks. We're all doing our part, making the small sacrifices that will get us through. However, I am a Mullen. Mullens are widely known as people of the idea, strong on good intentions, but weak on the follow-through. I never get around to congratulating rural Illinois on its unity. I will soon be glad of this. Thanks.
Thank you. I encourage folks to read the rest of that piece. I was so pleasantly surprised in just about every single paragraph. There was a twist in Frank's piece in just the best way. So thank you so much for sharing that, Frank.
Thank you.
I have to now remember that other people are here. Next, I'm inadequate. I'm just gonna read this bio. Beth Roberts wrote Most Viral Droplets at her table in Rock Island. In June 2020, after 30 years in the Quad Cities, she relocated to Michigan's Upper Peninsula. Something good happened to her during the pandemic. Her book, Like You, winner of the Autoline Prize, was published by Fence Books in January 2021. Before I let you take it away, Beth, I want to show it off. It is absolutely gorgeous. Highly recommend. There are some really, really cool projects in here that, I mean, you can see them. If you read it, you'll know what I'm talking about. It sounds weird out of context. But Beth is so talented. We're so lucky to have her here. Please take it away, Beth.
Thank you, Sarah. And it's really such a pleasure to be among all of you Quad citizens and Rosalie in Chicago. And when I wrote the poem and had read this article in the New York Times, it was April 2020. So if you can hearken back, we'd been living with this for a little over a month or something. And I had been at home, which is now Ryan's home, for a month. It was March 18th when I left Augustana and then didn't return. And I didn't know that was going to happen. But in any case, it was a crazy time. It's 2 years ago and lots happened since, and the pandemic is still with us, but we've learned to live with it in different ways. But at that point, I was having a hard time finding the optimism, which it seems Frank had an easier time locating. But this article I thought was, I don't know, I found something in it, and because it was a little bit of scientific rationale for how viral droplets operate. And so those of us who maybe thought it was unhealthy to move around and breathe the air suddenly had a little bit of some more understanding about how that worked. And I took to it. So I wrote a poem. I hadn't been doing any of that, and it's spare. It's, it was what the times demanded of me, I guess. So Most Viral Droplets, after reading Ask Well by Tara Parker Pope, New York Times, Sunday, April 18th, 2020, Rock Island, Illinois. You guys, can I just stop for a second? So my hair, I got a haircut today. She did this thing like this, these curls where you don't actually curl the bottom, apparently. Plus there's no conditioner in it. So I am very distracted by my hair. And I'm not going to say anything more about that. I'm just going to read this poem. But I got a haircut, and that's a new, that's something new in a pandemic. That was just today. All right, moving on. This is a very short poem, so I forgive myself for all this talking. Most viral droplets. Most viral droplets propelled through the air. Most viral droplets propelled through the air will drop onto the ground. The streamlines around a person's body create a shield similarly shaped. The viral droplets are like dust or small insects. The viral droplets are like dust or small insects floating around a windshield, which, when still or moving slowly, allows for the one and only aerodynamic save. The dust motes or small insects or The dust motes or small insects or viral droplets are driven, fainting along a trajectory. The action of aerosol cans misleads, you see. The action of aerosol cans misleads, you see, our understanding of the actions of most viral droplets. That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Gosh, I love your work so much. Also, to clear Beth's name a wee bit, I may have been distracting her with hair envy in the chat, and then let's see, 1, 2, 3 people did too. It wasn't just me. It's good hair. Okay, back to my professional mode. I have one of those. Next, we have Joe Chambers, who was born in Iowa, one of 8 children. He earned his BS in psychology and MA in public affairs from the University of Iowa. His poems have been published in Off Channel and Lyric Iowa. Joe and his wife Shelley share a house in Davenport. Its views provide their daily connection to the Mississippi River. Take it away, Joe.
Thanks, Sarah. Thanks. It's a pleasure to be among all of you. Thank you. I'm going to start with a poem that was written in the early stages of the pandemic when it was more of an inconvenience than anything else. So this is called Uncrowned, Homebound. Kitchen counters bare, dishes stowed in cabinets and dishwasher, floor swept, rugs shaken out front door, Tupperware excavated from fridge, aged pebbles of pasta trashed, white crusted stew poured down disposal, jam jars with remnant glaze, rinsed, then recycled. Bedroom closet empty, shirts, pants, sweaters, jackets piled on couch, sorted by what goes back in closet, what goes in bags to ritzy reruns or Goodwill. Sink and bathtub scrubbed, floor dusted and mopped, mirror polished, old medicines pitched in the trash can, laundry washed, t-shirts folded, floors paced, emails checked, couch flopped, binge watched. As Netflix numbers indicate, I was not alone in that. And then I walked a lot, especially in 2020, and because you could do that safely, to get outside. And walking along the Davenport downtown riverfront, it kind of struck me walking by Modern Woodman with the park closed and the Ferris wheel essentially put up for the winter in May. Minor Absence is the name of this poem. Ferris wheel skeleton, seats removed, towers over Modern Woodman Park. Beneath bleacher seats, cement glows, unlittered by peanut shells, popcorn bags, or hot dog wrappers balled and discarded by fans. Scents of hot nacho cheese, spilled beer don't roam the aisles. Aluminum shutters of food stand windows are lowered and locked. Major League Baseball reaches beyond this year's empty stadiums, draws on its history, games narrated by Vin Scully, Red Barber, Jack Buck, Mel Allen, and Ernie Harwell to radio listeners. Summer evenings in my neighborhood meant parents on the patio while we kids played workup, Herb Carneal calling Twins games from the land of sky blue waters. River Bandit games in this riverfront stadium feature major leaguers to be. Chatter between pitches and innings about who we saw play here on their way to the show, while our kids scurry between amusement park rides. But A-level games aren't broadcast. Without fans in Modern Woodman, the Ferris wheel doesn't turn, pitches don't pop catcher's mitts, bats don't crack line drives, and there are no close plays at home. Game called on account of Corona. Then I have one last poem. It's a short one, and this is a form called a golden shovel, which is was introduced by Terrence Hayes. He used poems of Gwendolyn Brooks. I used a poem from Langston Hughes, the Suicide's Note. And if you see this on the page, the end word of each line are the words of Langston Hughes's poems. Afterlife 2. Stomach ache, bad dream night, but the morning wakens calm. Cardinals, catbirds trill the night cool breeze. Across my bed, a face of sleep untroubled from lack of guilt or lack of remorse. The end's the same. Drifts down Moon River, glimpsed by me after 40 times I asked to accept the death that pains me, past strength I pray for. Replayed eye contact by Zoom, a cold substitute for goodbye kiss. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. I was hoping you would do 3. I didn't want to like hop on and be like, and more. So I'm glad that you did that. Our final reader for this evening, and then I think we'll have a little bit of room for Q&A for folks who are watching and would like to ask questions afterwards. So I hope you'll stick around. Our final reader for today is Xixuan Collins, author of Flowing Water, Falling Flowers from MWC Press. She lives in Iowa with her husband, son, and dog. To learn more about the author and her work, visit her website at xhcollins.com and follow her on Twitter at Xixuan_C, Facebook at xhcollins, and Instagram at Xixuan_C. Xixuan, take it away.
Thank you, Sarah. My piece is called What a Lucky Year, which sounds like a really title that's kind of weird to use for 2020, and it was written in January 2020. So do you think I can read the whole thing? It might just be a little over 10 minutes. Is that okay? Because mostly I wanted to read about, after publishing a book and then try to promote a book. But I did mention something about, I felt a lot of people felt about having a little kid has to do hybrid schooling, and I figured that would be a good part to kind of share here with everyone also. Okay, so it just might be a little bit over 10 minutes here. So what a lucky year. I know. What am I thinking? Why would anyone whose name is not Jeff Bezos call 2020 lucky? Nightmare, disaster, catastrophe, a glimpse into the apocalypse and the collapse of human civilization. These are more likely words to be associated with the year of Australia, bushfire, derecho, a word that was not in my dictionary before. And worst of all, the COVID-19 pandemic that swept the globe and has killed more than 5,000 Iowans. It was the year when children abruptly lost contact with their friends and teachers, and academically, some might have fallen behind a whole year. It was the year when we didn't get to see our elderly parents and grandparents, even as they were dying on hospital beds. It was the year when systemic racism continued to kill innocent Black people. It was the year when incidents of anti-Asian racism surged. It was the year when the force that endangered our democracy fought truth like a rabid animal with misinformation foaming at its mouth. On a more personal level, even before the pandemic, 2020 was already going badly when 5 people I know had heart attacks in the week leading up to Valentine's Day. A dear friend recovered. Thankfully, my husband's uncle sadly died. Then a cousin had pre-eclampsia, and then the uncle had horrific ATV and motorcycle accidents. But being a teacher, a mother, and a writer prepared me to deal with 2020. It is impossible to be a mother and a professional at the same time if you want to devote yourself to both. Don't let anyone fool you by telling you that you can't have it all. You cannot, not without help anyway. You have to make a choice for the sanity of yourself and your family. I had to, and I was lucky because I was able to make a choice, though I made it without knowing what 2020 would bring. Before the world clamped down and isolated us, I had already decided to withdraw from it by giving up a tenured college teaching job so many would love to have. In this regard, I outsmarted 2020. You see, I had something big coming in 2020. A dream came true, something I had wanted to do since childhood, but I couldn't because doing it was no way to earn money and pay bills. Doing it was dangerous as words can be sharper than daggers. Doing it was impossible because it required time, which was the scarcest resource in my world. But I did it. In October 2020, I would publish my debut novel and become an author. I worked hard on the book for more than 3 years. Many people also worked hard on my behalf to bring the book to the world. I wanted to give the book my attention as it deserved, like a newborn baby, not a stuffed animal I played with when I had time, which was the case with all my writing before that. I wrote the book on evenings and weekends and during summer and winter breaks. I did not watch television or stream Netflix. I did my best with my teaching job and being present for my students, 100%. Still, that presence became increasingly difficult because of the overload all faculty had to take on due to lack of hiring to replace retired professors and lack of qualified adjunct instructors in the area. I tried my best to be a good mother, but I knew I could have done more for my child who needs special attention much more than typical children his age. In the second half of 2019, I started to contemplate what I should do for 2020. I wanted to promote the book vigorously, which probably would require traveling, which I couldn't do if I taught full-time. I'm not the person who takes personal leave. I took 3 days off during my 15 years of teaching, one for my sister's wedding, one for my immigration visit, and one for my son's kindergarten roundup. My son would be entering 5th grade, and I wanted to be 100% for him when he went through the increasingly challenging demands of growing up. Can you see that math is a problem here? How can one be 200% being a teacher and a mother? I had taken unwanted teaching overload for 2 consecutive semesters, which had taken a toll on my motivation and energy for teaching. Not being able to help high-need students because I don't have time for them also chewed pieces of me away. Every day when I went to work, I thought about quitting. In a few years, I would be able to retire, but by then, I would have missed my son's critical late elementary years when he would start to develop more self-awareness and need our guidance. I could promote my book on weekends, but I couldn't just be a mother on weekends. On top of everything, negotiating construction on I-74 and its bridge morning and afternoon, sometimes several times in a single day, because I had to pick up my son from school, then go back to work for meetings and evening classes, did not make things any easier. One day in the hallway at work, a friend said to me, "You know, you don't have to quit right away. Why not try to take a leave of absence and see how things will turn out?" Leave of absence. I had not thought about this excellent idea. So I researched my contract and faculty handbook. Later, when I talked to people about being on leave, many assumed that I was on sabbatical, but what I took, in fact, was unpaid leave. I knew asking not to be paid up front was my only chance of possibly being granted leave. Even so, it was up to the vice president of the instruction and honor to me at the time, the board of trustees, to approve or deny my request. I was grateful that my application submitted in November of 2019 was approved in February 2020. I would start my leave in August 2020. Little did I know then that I would be a lot more than grateful in merely 1 month. I would be relieved, deeply, enormously relieved, albeit my relief was tinged with something like survivor's guilt. Because had I not taken this leave of absence, I would be good as dead from the exhaustion of managing teaching on a new platform, homeschooling, and worrying about the safety of my family due to increased anti-Asian racism, not to mention the potential of contracting the deadly virus. I had planned to visit my family in China in the summer of 2020 after 2 years of not seeing them. I had hoped to visit art markets while I was there to have my book merchandise made by real artists, not by some faceless workers behind a mass production chain. I had planned to have my local friends cater Chinese snacks for my book launch party. A couple of friends had planned to attend the book launch and use this as a reunion opportunity since our days in Ames. My supportive family have planned to join me in travels for book promotion. Of course, I plan to write, finishing the first draft of my second novel, perhaps. As for the other reason why I took the leave, to be a better mom, I did not make as many plans. My only plan was to be there, to be present and do what was needed of me. Nothing went as planned. Looking back on 2020, here are some unforgettable memories. January, actually, I don't remember because things were as usual. February, we lost all my husband's parents at the beginning of this month. Once COVID hit, we wouldn't see them because they're older and have high risk factors. Valentine's Day this year was sad because my husband was in Texas attending the funeral of his uncle who died young and unexpectedly of a heart attack. March, my son participated in his first piano contest and he did a marvelous job. I did not return to campus after spring break because we switched to online teaching due to COVID. At the time, we didn't know that we would never return to campus for the rest of the school year. For the same reason, my son did not return to school building after spring break. And he asked every day if he could return the next day. We told him maybe April he could return. My husband traveled to work site just in time for it to be closed due to COVID. April was probably the hardest month. We were all crammed at home, trying to make our jobs and schoolwork. I was going crazy from having to come up with ideas, plans, and worksheets to teach labs, which by definition should be hands-on, online. Students were not able to count fruit flies in the lab, but they still learned, I hope, how to ask scientific questions, make observations, formulate hypotheses, make predictions, analyze data, and draw conclusions, all through videos I found on the internet or self-made, and pictures and numbers previous classes had gathered in the past. Zoom teaching went smoothly for the most part, despite the few times when I had to shush the child or the dog. But my son was also going crazy from not being able to go to school. I tried to be there for them as the teacher, both general and special education, the school aide, the lunch lady, and the custodian. My husband was going crazy from having to work from home. So what did we do? We adopted a dog. Just as Zadie Smith said in Intermissions, a collection of essays she wrote during the early months of lockdown. But in our case, instead of the endless pas de deux, we wanted some relief to the tiresome threesome. May, for my son's birthday, instead of traveling somewhere to celebrate or having a backyard party, we had cupcakes outside and his friends stopped at various times to have a socially distant visit. Watching these kids enjoying themselves the best they could, 6 feet apart on the front lawn, was something I would never forget. June, my son had eye surgery. The little guy was the first one in the family to brave a stick in your nose COVID test. The surgery went well, to our relief. July, instead of flying to China, we drove to Michigan for a 3-day COVID-safe beach vacation. My son loves to travel, and that was the only thing we were comfortable doing. We checked in and out by the curbside, had all our food as takeout, and wore masks when we had to be inside anywhere except in our room. My book editing had reached its final stage, and I knew the book launch would be virtual. August, derecho. We did not have electricity for 3 days, but other than that, with only a few broken tree limbs, our situation was much better than a lot of other Iowans. September, my son started 5th grade as a hybrid student and school for 4.5 days every 2 weeks. And anytime the school could turn to 100% online, but I was not afraid. My luck really, truly shone now. October was a strange month. My book launched on the 15th and my dream had come true, just in a way I had not expected. I had planned to focus all my energy on this one thing, launching my book before COVID, but now I also worried about homeschooling, which was a full-time job. I would have loved the in-person book launch with family and friends and readers, but now I had to make do with a virtual launch. I did my best. Wearing a mask, I got a fresh haircut, my first one in many months. I bought a new shirt because my friend, who is an expert in public relations, advised against appearing on camera wearing painted shirts, of which I discovered I have many. I acquired a ring light for illumination and a seat cushion for added height. So when I did Zoom, I wouldn't look like I was
It looks like we have lost Xixuan. I'm sorry to tell you. Should she come?
but I
back?
tried.
Oh, great.
And just like that, I sent my first book out in the world. Okay, and then December and November, I'll be done. November, book promotion and homeschooling. December, book promotion and homeschooling. And then I talked about the joys and sorrows of 2020. So I think I'm going to stop here. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Xixuan. I am so proud to have been on the team that welcomed this book, Flowing Water, Falling Flowers, into the world. Xixuan is a really, really fantastic author. And I mean, I've been saying that all night. I feel very lucky that that's true, that part of my life is ushering in really beautiful work into the world. I think that tonight has been a great display that you can trust my taste. So check out Xixuan's book. Before I say goodbye to everyone, I would like to thank the funders who made this book possible. I want to thank Lisa Williams and the Moline Public Library in general for including us in your programming. We want to acknowledge Philip E. Koenig, attorney at law, the Illinois Arts Council Agency, Illinois Humanities, and the Poetry Foundation for their financial support of this volume. We also want to thank Total Printing Systems and Legacy Book Press for sponsoring some copies. And the wonderful, beautiful team that came together to make this book possible within the Midwest Writing Center, which includes, of course, editor Misty Urban, Executive Director Ryan Collins, Mary David Saver, Philip Sturt, and Susan Collins, who came up with the idea. I thought maybe we could do a Q&A, but the questions that I have prepped, I really want to ask of everyone, and that would be a really long evening. So I think I will let everyone go for the night. I hope that everyone is as moved by this volume as I have been. I'm so grateful to each of you who are here today. Amy, Frank, Beth, Joe, Xixuan. Yeah, thank you so much for being here. And as always, I hope that you will write more light into your lives.